All right. Hi, you guys. How are you?
Hi, great.
Great.
Great. Nice. Okay. We have started. I'm excited to get this meeting going because we've kind of gotten our feet a little bit wet with this curriculum implementation. And I was just thinking that we could go around and everyone could start off the meeting with a win from the curriculum implementation so far.
I'll start. I'm really excited that we have both schools that had come to consensus and have really taken ownership of this curriculum adoption and are excited to do the work, even though it's going to be a heavy lift. I love that we're doing this together as a whole organization.
Nice.
I think one of the wins I'm so excited about right now is just seeing students working with high quality literature and seeing some of the things they get to read right now has been pretty fun.
I'm most excited about our teachers being able to collaborate and being in like the same curriculum, the same units. It's not like hodgepodge of teachers pay teachers and curriculum. And I'm proud that all of them sticking with it, like Casey said, because it is beefy, it's hard, and they're doing a good job of collaborating and working through it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's also really good to know that our teachers are actually teaching grade level content and material where we were really not quite sure if we were on grade level. It's a good feeling to have that externally validated curriculum happening.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Casey, is that like so many years we put a lot of energy into creating our own units and they were engaging and they were innovative, but I think we definitely found that they lacked some rigor. And so I'm excited that we're using curriculum that's been vetted and researched. So nice, that's awesome. Okay, so thanks all for meeting today. The purpose of this meeting is we have had our first set of walkthroughs on Chico and Paradise's campus. So we can review some of that data and then we want to determine our next step in the curriculum implementation. Sound good to everyone?
Great.
Perfect. Before we get going, let's take a few minutes and let's establish some team norms so that we know that we're communicating effectively and that every voice is heard. You can also, when we're thinking about our norms, we can think about kind of next steps that we are personally thinking about for our implementation if we want to consider that for some of our norms as well. So what are some norms we would like to follow in today's meeting?
I'll start.
Great.
I really have liked how I've seen the four of us actually take ownership for all the teachers in our network, not just for like Steve feeling responsible for his teachers and Erica for hers, but like all four of us really like a co-team where we own all the instruction across the network and across both schools. Sometimes that might be hard, like, am I giving feedback to you about your own teachers where it's your school? But I haven't seen that, and I appreciate that. I just want to name it and make sure it keeps going.
Nice. So I'm hearing like we want to take a norm of owning the work and the hard struggles of both campuses. I like that. Steve, Erica, what about you guys?
I have one. I think it's easy for the four of us to get super busy, and this is a big priority and organizational goal. So I think when we have the meetings on our calendar to do this work, that it's a priority and that we show up and stay in the work during that time.
I like that one.
Sure.
Stay focused. I like that. I appreciate that too. I feel like when we do meet together, I really do appreciate that we're not checking emails or doing side projects or texting each other or texting other people during this. And if we need to take a break, then we can excuse ourselves politely to do so. Nice.
I've got a like looking forward norm as we're planning for PD based on our walkthroughs. I think that we should strive to provide the same type of PD that we're looking for in instruction from our staff. So providing PD that lets them do productive struggle, keeping the PD hard and also making it not just like an information dump where they're sitting there and listening, but that they're active learners.
I like that.
That's good. I would add to it because we've seen that maybe lack of sense of purpose about the lesson, that we be very intentional and clear about the purpose of the professional development.
I like that.
I appreciate that too, because I like the being purposeful in how we're going to support our teachers, because we are asking them to make a big lift of taking on this curriculum. And so I know time is valuable for them. So I think if we can model that in our meetings, I think it's going to come a little bit easier in next steps. Being new to this team a little bit and new to this role, I would just say let's practice some vulnerability and be honest with one another. If we're going to throw out some ideas on what we think will make an effective PD, and it will be really helpful to kind of come just with that vulnerability and honesty if we don't think that's the direction we need to go. Great. Okay. So we have our norms. We're going to be taking ownership. We are creating a learning experience within our team, just as we want to with our teachers. We are going to stay focused. This meeting is our priority. And if we need to take a message or talk to somebody, we'll politely excuse ourselves. And we're going to lead with purpose. I love it. Okay. So today, I'm going to start this meeting off with reviewing some of the data from our initial walkthroughs on both campuses. Before I do that, I do want to remind you of our goals that we have set, our instructional goals. So earlier in the year, we had set that 80% of the observed lessons will utilize the curriculum, tools, and resources and be aligned to the corresponding standard. When doing our initial walkthroughs, 65% of classrooms in Chico were observed doing that. So not bad, like initial data. And 83% of classrooms observed in Paradise were utilizing the curriculum. The next instructional goal we had was 80% of observed lessons by May will allow students to do the majority of the work in service of grade level standards with scaffolding only when appropriate. And we saw about 75% of observed lessons in Chico where students were using a majority of, were doing a majority of the work, and 83% again in Paradise the students were doing a majority of the work. So I feel like it's a really good, strong start. I feel like we have a lot of momentum with this curriculum. And I'm hoping we can keep that going as we're looking at next steps with our implementation. Any thoughts about the data or what I just shared?
I appreciate this spreadsheet and the notes that you put in here. This is really helpful.
Nice. Yeah, I like that spreadsheet. I'm really happy that Instruction Partners helped us create that. But I'm liking that spreadsheet as a housing place for not only our data, but then also tracking the action steps so we can revisit that in our second set of walkthroughs. Casey, do you want to share out the initial walkthrough that we did with Instruction Partners, what our findings were? You kind of mentioned it earlier.
When we were talking about noticing overall, like teachers not understanding the actual purpose of the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really interesting that the standards not completely spelled out in their lesson plans too. It seems like they need some support identifying what standard they're actually hitting. And then we noticed so many of them trying to adjust their curriculum because it's kind of overwhelming and they don't really understand the way it works. And in that effort to adjust it for their students, pulling out the key piece that was actually supposed to be driving students towards the purpose and the standard. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to need to do some work with our teachers, helping them understand the real purpose and standard of the lessons.
Yeah, I agree. That was definitely seeming to be true. Like a lot of the teachers didn't understand the purpose of each assignment, nor did they understand like the standards related to each task. Erica and Steve, did you see any other data or Any other observations from our walkthroughs?
I mean, I think our K2 team is doing a great job following their curriculum and their foundation stuff, which is hopeful that that will continue to build, and we'll see that in the years to come with a good foundation. I don't think we've necessarily had that kindergarten, first and second grade, so I'm excited that that the program we found in the curriculum we found is being implemented and done really well to fidelity. They're doing a great job. Third through eighth grade, I think I noticed that I mean, very similar. Like they're trying to understand the curriculum and get into the curriculum. And I think what we've noticed is we really need to support our teachers in planning and really understanding the goals of each lesson and how to use planning time and prep time efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. I just want to see the teachers understanding the purpose. I think I just want to see them following more closely the curriculum, but I think the reason they're not is because they don't understand the purpose of each part.
Yeah.
So
And I think we keep trying to figure out what they're missing. And I think that'll come as we continue to work together. I think a lot of us are saying they're missing the purpose, but I feel like we keep bringing them back to the purpose. So I feel like we maybe need to work as a team to figure out how to bridge that gap that they're missing. I don't think us continuing to say standards and purpose is what's working right now.
I also noticed that when Instruction Partners was doing it with us in the hallway, they were helping us think through what we should be seeing students and teachers doing before we even walked in there based on the lesson and the standard. And a lot of the times we were not seeing that. And so there's a disconnect somewhere. And they're also, I liked that exercise for us as instructional coaches. Just made things a little more
For sure. Yeah, that was a good point. I feel like, well, just utilizing a curriculum, especially a new one, you're just trying to hit all the steps, right? You're like, I got to do this and I got to do this. And I think the teachers are forgetting the why behind it. So it sounds like we need to do a little bit more internalization. Do we want to focus on unit internalization, or do we want to focus on lesson internalization?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't really know, but I feel like it's still the lesson part, just because I feel like I see teachers spending too long still on some of those lesson. So I don't even know if it's like the teacher not understanding the skill that they're teaching, or that they don't understand the purpose of that part of the lesson still. For example, the ELA class we were in the other day, where they were, like deconstructing the assessment instead of just giving the assessment.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's still at lesson level.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they are doing a unit internalization, and that's maybe why they're cutting things out of lessons, because they think it doesn't apply to the unit, but they're not recognizing how each lesson builds upon each other. So I agree with Steve that maybe it is lesson internalization, but maybe they need to know the whole overarching goal of the unit too. Like it's kind of confusing on which one should come first.
It's interesting too, because part of that with backwards design is like kind of pulling back from your assessments, and then that those mid-unit assessments, the cold read things, are like, I remember after the training over the summer asking teachers if they learned about that, and they're like, no, I still don't know what that is. And then to see it like not really being used correctly, at least by one teacher, indicates that like we might need to just have like a training just on like the assessments from Witten and Winston. Because I don't know if the end of the unit assessments are going to be given with fidelity either.
Interesting. What do you think we're going to get more bang for their buck? Unit internalization at this given moment, or lesson internalization?
My first initial reaction is lesson, because we're still not seeing them implement lessons very well. But like I said, I don't know if they're not implementing those lessons well because they don't understand the lesson or they don't understand the unit. But for right now, what I think is like bringing them back to the lesson seems like the first choice.
And the cool thing about Wit and Wisdom is that we can look at lesson sets. So I'm wondering if we look at lesson internalization with the focus of just looking at where does that lesson fall within the lesson set, and that's where that's our
Yeah.
starting point. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's how I plan Wit and Wisdom right now as a teacher. So it seems like it seems like that's what they should be doing if they're not doing it. So maybe checking in with that would be a good idea.
Steve, how does that sound if we did lesson internalization with focusing on just where the lesson lies within the set of lessons?
I think that could be good. I'm not sure if that would clarify for teachers that this gap that we're seeing, because the
Yeah.
gap we're seeing is like within the little pieces of a lesson.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying too, is I don't know that the lesson internalization stuff is necessarily hitting that gap that we're trying to make them see.
So you think they see a little bigger picture?
I don't know. That's what I've been kind of trying to figure out for the last week, is like, why are they still missing this? I don't understand what the disconnect is.
Have they spent enough time in it that they understand the structure of the lesson and how it's saying?
I mean, yes, as a teacher who's doing it, everybody is far enough into Wit and Wisdom where they should understand the structure of the lessons. Yeah.
But I'm wondering too if they're understanding how one activity is building onto the next activity, is building onto the next activity.
Well, I mean, obviously not, or if they just aren't comfortable with it and don't, some of it's time management, or do they not know how to do that skill?
Mhm.
Do they, when we saw that they're supposed to be editing their paragraph that they wrote previous lessons prior, did they not do that? Did they not get to it because of time management? Did they not, you know what I'm saying? I don't know why you wouldn't do what the lesson is telling you to do. And as an admin team, we said like follow it with fidelity. So I just
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, Erica, because make me think that like we've never really given that task before. Like in the past, they've had to like it was a norm that they had to edit the units like that.
Yeah.
So this could be a big enough shift. And I think even our new teachers who've come from different, like I know in talking with Aaron about, the curriculum that he was using at his previous school, like he had to make really big changes to it to make it work. So they might just be having a hard time getting rid of that mindset that you actually need to do a lot of change to the unit, where we're trying to tell them like for a while, don't change any. Let's see what gains we can get before we make any changes. But just that in itself is a pretty big mind shift that I do agree that we've talked about, but we haven't really like us four have talked about that a ton.
Yeah.
I don't think my staff has talked about it much,
Yeah. And we've had a history, our school's had a history where we've created our own units. We prided ourselves in creating our units, right? And so this is a huge shift that we have to recognize that a lot of our teachers, even the new ones, but like older ones are experiencing as well, or veterans.
And even using Summit, like we were like most of what we talked about during PD with Summit was how to adjust the units or adjust the lessons. So,
and there's not a part of me that thinks teachers are like, I'm just not going to listen to that. I don't think they're doing it on purpose and just don't want to listen to what we're asking them to do. I
wonder if we just haven't had that conversation with them as much as we've had with ourselves.
Yeah. Or if they just don't see the gap like we do. So do we need to take a teacher and do the work with them so that they can start seeing what we're seeing? I
think so.
Well, I did like the idea we were brainstorming the other day of possibly videoing some things and having them do some reflection, it really is hard to reflect in the moment. And I know they are reflecting in the moment.
Yeah.
I just don't know that they would come to the same conclusions that we are, because as a teacher, you're probably reflecting on like, oh, this kid was struggling with that concept level of reflection after a lesson.